My name is Ginny, also known as 2/3 Lotus, everywhere on the internet. This clip is part of my series, The Poets of Twitch, where I analyze my viewers' writing live on stream. Nothing has been edited out, so you're seeing this exactly as streamed with all of the imperfections and tangents that come with being live. If you want to catch me live or want more information, check out the description. Otherwise, enjoy some excellent writing.
By Stylish Fail. Pitch it to a local channel. I could. Okay. Here is Hope. It is a sonnet. Do you perceive a waifish frightened hope? A blonde and crying child her tears upon, a dress that still might smell of flowery soap. Is she a thing to be dismissed upon? But hope is not ephemeral was born, all pocked and scarred she has never been. Oh, all pocked and scarred she has never been. Okay, so we missed a syllable there. All pocked and scarred she has never been, an innocent was born all bloodily torn. She goes, despite what she has seen. She stumbles on, eyes aloft shattered wail, released from lumpy throat, not back, not back. Her knuckles bruised, she knows this ancient tale. Because she does not shrink, she is attack. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. Hope. A sonnet. Read it again. Do you perceive a waifish frightened hope? A blonde and crying child her tears upon, a dress that still might smell of flowery soap. Is she a thing to be dismissed upon? Oh, that's a good rhyme. But hope is not ephemeral was born, all pocked and scarred she has never been. An innocent was born all bloodily torn. She goes, despite what she has seen. She stumbles on, eyes aloft shattered wail, released from lumpy throat, not back, not back. Her knuckles bruised, she knows this ancient tale. Because she does not shrink, she is attack. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. I really like this line break. Like, you read it and you're like, wait, where's the end of the poem? And then you look over here and it's there. Like, that's a very cool move. But let's talk about sonnets. So, we've been talking a lot about iambic form lately, or iambic meter. So, we know that it is a short, unstressed syllable and a stressed syllable. Unstressed, stressed. This is our basic iamb. No, this is an iamb. And we use 5 of these in iambic pentameter for 5. So, looking at our poem, first is do you. Generally, we can fit whatever monosyllabic words we want into this structure. You made a table in Google Docs to keep track of the symbols, or the syllables. Excellent. And you almost got there. And like, for a first try on a sonnet, it's very good. So, do you perceive? So, the word perceive. When we say perceive, You can even say it out loud. Perceive. It is an unstressed per, and then sieve is where we land and have more weight. It wouldn't sound right to go perceive. Perceive. It's perceive. So that fits really nicely into the unstressed, stressed I am structure. Unstressed, unstressed, stressed, stressed. A, pretty easy unstressed syllable. Then we have wayfish. Wayfish. Waif-ish. Tends to be that if we stick ish on the end of something, it doesn't want to be stressed. Waif is the main word, and we say it. We wouldn't say wayfish. Wayfish. It's wayfish. Da da. So da dun da dun da dun da. Do you perceive a waif? Do you perceive a wayfish frightened hope? So now we have frightened. Frightened. And it is a trotchy, similar to wayfish, which means it goes stressed, unstressed. The opposite, as we've said, it might be trochee? Trochee? Is that how you're supposed to say it? Whatever. Trochee. It's the opposite of an iamb. So when we say that something is a trotchy, trochee, 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 it's not trochee, I know that. It goes stressed, unstressed. Let me look up the pronunciation. Trochee. Okay. A foot consisting of one long or stressed syllable, followed by one unstressed syllable. W is unstressed. Interesting. Trochee. And trochee is a trochee. Trochee. So is I am. I am. An iamb and a trochee are the same. They start with stress and move to unstressed something. Okay, and then do you perceive a wayfish frightened hope? So we land here. And any single syllable word can be placed pretty easily in stress or unstress. So the first line checks out. It's like perfect. No complaints. A blonde and crying child her tears upon. A blonde and crying child her tears upon. So this is something that I notice like immediately, which is something I think a lot of people struggle with in sonnet, is people really like to just have every line be punctuated. They'll go, here's a thing, question mark. Here's a line, period. Here's a line, period. Here's a line, exclamation point, or whatever. I would say it's slightly more advanced to, have your lines of your sonnet kind of be punctuated, not just at the end. To have, period, keep going, here, maybe that ends there, you keep going, this one goes to the end. This is a little more difficult to do than just punctuating every line. So this is like good. A blonde and crying child her tears upon. So crying. A blonde and crying child. Crying. Da-dum. Da-dum. Crying. Crying. A crying. A blonde and crying. Yeah, so that's fine. That feels like a trochee. So, short, long, short, long, short, long. A blonde and crying child, her tears upon. Dun dun dun. Upon. Upon is an excellent iamb. Any of these, like, words that just have a single sound and then a, like, very long syllable. Amongst, or among, about, upon, are all iambs. So that fits well. A dress that still might smell of flowery soap. Almost all monosyllabic, so pretty straightforward in this. No complaints. I do like flowery here. And this really shows, I think, you like writing a sonnet like people actually write sonnets. Because sometimes we want to say flowery, but it's 3 syllables, so flowery. And definitely is trochaic, so beautiful. Is she a thing to be dismissed upon? Dismissed, dun, dismissed. Is she a thing to be dismissed upon? Perfect. Really fun rhyme. Or actually, what is that? That's not a rhyme technically. That is when they sound the same. Homophones. Since these are exactly the same sound, upon and upon, it like works fine in the sonnet structure of rhyming. It's just like very cool. So, and then you do A here, B, so you're doing the A, B structure just fine. But hope is not ephemeral was born. Ephemeral. Dun, 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 dun. So if we say ephemeral, fem is definitely very stressed. A fem. It's kind of like about. A fem. And a roll, ephemeral. It's not ephemeral or something. Like, it is very. It's like a double iamb. Finding words like this are very awesome for your sonnets. And the fact that you're going beyond just your sort of monosyllabic words, like, shows that you're really making an effort at doing the sonnet thing. But hope is not ephemeral was born. Beautiful. And all pocked and scarred she has never been. And then it breaks. So everything is good up to here. And then we slightly slip up with the form. And like, it's okay. It's a pretty easy change. We just missed one syllable. All pocked and scarred she has never been. Unless you try to force another syllable into scarred, like scarred. All pocked and scarred she has never been. You know, we could assume it's that. All pocked and scarred she has never been. Never. Never is trochaic. It's not never, it's never. So, in a sense, looking at this, there is a way to say scarred as scarred. All pocked and scarred she. And that even works really well because it's a trochee. So, and if we're reading a sonnet, we would want to assume that it does work if there's a way to have it work. So, having this be pronounced as scarred does make it work. And then it's not bad. This is why sometimes you have to like analyze these things. And maybe this was the intent and you forgot. Maybe this wasn't the intent. But if we can find a way to have the poem function, then we should assume it's the one that functions. High Caliber, you're a fan of poetic devices. So am I. That's why I do this. So now we're back on track. We are flawless now. An innocent was born. So, an innocent. 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 I think that's good. Like, O is definitely the least stressed in this poem. Or in the word. Innocent. So, given that that is particularly unstressed, it's pretty easy then to pronounce the things around it as stressed. So then, an innocent was born all bloodily torn. And we're good. We have an internal rhyme in that line. Born and torn. Which is sort of interesting, right? Because we actually have born and torn. But hope is not ephemeral, was born, all pocked and scarred she... all pocked and scarred she has never been. An innocent was born all bloodily torn. She goes, despite what she has seen. And this is been, actually, not been. So, you definitely do some, like, tricky things here. You just noticed you use born twice. I find it actually happens a lot in sonnets to me, accidentally using a word twice and not realizing it. I think it's just because we get certain sort of rhythm in our head, and when something has worked in our poem rhythmically, it's pretty easy to accidentally do it again. So, like, I've personally noticed writing sonnets that can happen, where I'll use the same word twice. So just be careful of it. I don't think it's bad. An innocent was birthed all bloodily torn. You could say that. And then you're fine. Either way. It is like, maybe... I don't know if it's odd, because it like anticipates this rhyme. We might decide whether it's effective or not later. She goes, despite what she has seen. Despite, 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 not despite. It's hard to say despite as like a non-iambic word. So, da-dun, I am, she has seen. So now we're like still doing good. She stumbles on, I saw aloft. And here's the one that had me tripping up. Aloft. So, she stumbles, that's fine. She stumbles on, but then aloft is very much iambic. Same as about, amongst, upon. Aloft is so iambic that it is sort of almost impossible to say it as a trotchy. Aloft. Aloft. The word is aloft. It lands on loft. So then this is a sort of hiccup, a break, a struggle in the iambic structure. So, she stumbles on aloft eyes. That doesn't even work well either. She stumbles on a loft eyes and a wail, released from lumpy throat, not back, not back. Her knuckles bruise, she knows this ancient tale, because she does not shrink, she is attack. Aloft-eyed. Wait, she stumbles on a loft-eyed. She stumbles on a loft-eyed shattered wail. It's better. So you could just switch it. There's usually a way that you can just like reverse the words and be happy with it. So if we did a loft-eyed, and there might be a more elegant solution. Well, this is maybe the most elegant solution I could provide, given that I try not to change or add words when I give feedback. Same with, you know, this being elegant because it doesn't change the poem. So this is only a slight tweak, doesn't add anything or remove anything that you wrote. She stumbles on a loft-eyed shattered wail. Shattered wail. Released from lumpy throat, not back, not back. Her knuckles bruise, she knows this ancient tale. Because she does not shrink. She is attack. And then we're fine throughout this. Knuckles is a trochee. Released, similar to our aloft or amongst. Dadom, released. And because, similar as well. Because is a great way to start a line in a sonnet. Or at least it's one that fits very well and is easy. And then attack, super iambic. So then this all checks out pretty well if we make the slight change there. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. Savors. Yeah. Definitely a trochee. Savor. Savor. Because A is such a stressed vowel. As opposed to it's a little lighter. Savors. Haggard breath. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. Haggard. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. I like this. It's so separate from the rest. It gives us a pause even when we're reading if we know it's over there. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. Almost takes time to just look over and process the word. Which is like, that's a structural choice that impacts sound. Rhyme scheme is kept up. Born, bean, seen, whale tail, back, attack. And then you're like, breath, give. Wait, that doesn't make sense. But it is breath, death. So then we're fine. It's very smart. Welcome, Raiders and EJ Sean. How are you all doing? My name is Ginny. We are reading a poem by StylishFail. And EJ Sean, welcome. How was your stream? I hope you're well. If you are, tired, have to raid and run, that's absolutely okay. Same goes for everyone else. If you're getting off, do take care of yourselves and yeah, make sure to be well. It was good, thank you. Hope you have a good stream. I hope so too. Thank you so much, and I hope you had a great stream, EJ Sean. Also, I really appreciate the raid. And StylishFail, can you shout out EJ Sean? She stumbles on with eyes aloof, a wail. Released. Yeah, so you could do eyes aloof. I think aloft is functionally similar, like sound-wise, and I wasn't going to change the word just for the sake of it. Poetry, an art form that has its own unique challenges. Yes. It's / shout out StylishFail. So it's just / for the Twitch commands. Yes. Mookie me or MC. Mookie MC. We are currently reading a sonnet as well, which means it has particular challenges of its own. Hence the underlining. We're going through the structure and making sure this sonnet is correctly iambic. So, do you perceive a waifish fright and hope, a blonde and crying child her tears upon, a dress that still might smell of flowery soap, is she a thing to be dismissed upon? So this is a pretty restrictive form of poetry whenever we're using verse. So it definitely has particular challenges in that regard as well. And I'll read the whole poem for those coming in to catch y'all up. Here's Hope by StylishFail. Do you perceive a wayfish frightened hope? A blonde and crying child, her tears upon a dress that still might smell of her tears a blonde and crying child her tears upon a dress that still might smell of flowery soap, is she a thing to be dismissed upon? But hope is not ephemeral, was born, all pocked and scarred she has never been, an innocent was born, all bloodly torn, she goes despite what she has seen. She stumbles on she stumbles on a loft-eyed shattered whale, released from lumpy throat, not back, not back. Her knuckles bruised, she knows this ancient tale. Because she does not shrink, she is attack. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. Hope by StylishFail. So now that we've gone through the structure, the sound of the sonnet, your rhyme scheme is good. Whale, tail, back, attack, breath, death. Iambic, generally good. StylishFail, would you like me to read it here on with the aloft-eyed edit? Because this preserves the form. Or should I still kind of just read it as eyes aloft? Yes, make the edit. Okay. So this is aloft-eyed. Aloft-eyed. Okay. So now, I think one of your questions was how well do you do the sonnet form? Feedback on how well you stuck to the formal requirements. So, at this point, you are like spot on with the sonnet requirements. You've done 4-4-4-2, which is one of the many proper sonnet forms. You are doing ABAB, CDCD, EFEF, and then GG as your rhyme scheme. So there's not much that one can now, after those couple things, necessarily change to make this like a better sonnet. However, we haven't talked about meaning and what this poem is actually saying yet. So now we can dive into that. So, do you perceive a wayfish frightened hope? I'm just going to look this up to make sure I have the right definition of wayfish in my head. A young person, thin and looking unhealthy, uncared for. So like anemic, basically. Or like malnourished. Homeless, friendless, neglected. That's brutal. So thin and just sort of like hungry, we'll say. Think girl with the matchsticks. Girl with the matchsticks. I'm familiar with this, I think. Girl with... This is a thing, right? Matchsticks. I spelled it wrong. That? She dies of hunger. Happy holidays. Oh, that's unpleasant. About a dying child's dreams and hope. Well, that's brutal. VR films, that's crazy. We live in 2025. Young girl frozen shivering, bareheaded, barefoot, trying to sell matches in the street. Afraid to go home because her father would beat her For failing to sell any matches, not earning a penny. Huddles, lights. Oh, yeah, I recognize this. Okay. Sees comforting visions and dies. That's pretty brutal. And also maybe having the build of a matchstick, you know, rail thin, stick like. But this is not referring to a person necessarily so much as a hope. Now, it could also be referring to the child, since this is something we would normally use to describe a person. And we do have a blonde and crying child. Her tears upon. A dress that still might smell of flowery soap. So this has like some indication then of her not necessarily being like super poor. Talking meaning. Frightened child, but the hope is wayfish. She, though, smells of flowery soap, which is not normally something we would associate with poverty. Is she a thing to be dismissed upon? Let's keep going. But hope is not ephemeral, was born. All pocked and scarred she has never been. An innocent was born all bloodly torn. So this is where, now that you're not doing punctuation at the end of line, we have to keep looking through multiple lines to get meaning. But hope is not ephemeral, was born all pocked and scarred, she has never been. But it's not saying she has never been pocked and scarred. If this was punctuated, it might. But she has never been an innocent, was born all bloodly torn. So this girl was born scarred, pocked, and has no innocence. She has never been an innocent. Tells us that fairly straightforward. She stumbles on a loft-eyed, shattered wail, released from lumpy throat. Not back, not back. So she's like shouting this. Her knuckles bruised. She knows this ancient tale. Because she does not shrink, she is attacked. So she stumbles on, aloft-eyed, shattered well, released from lumpy throat. Not back, not back. What could that be saying? Shouting, not back, not back. Actually, I have like no idea. Her knuckles bruise, she knows this ancient tale. Because she does not shrink, she is attacked. So this, I mean, the poem is really telling us that it's referencing something. She knows this ancient tale that I am perhaps not picking up on. A girl fighting, not innocent, does not shrink, she's attacked. Huh. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. So overall, there's this big description. She stumbles on forward and not back. Yeah, she stumbles on. She is moving forward. And I think this is a big point in the poem. Oh, I see, not back. She stumbles on. Aloft I chattered well, released from my throat. Not back, not back. I will not go back. I will keep pushing forward. That makes sense, Mookie MC. That, yeah, that's a great interpretation. That's a good connection. So I was just going to say that we have this general description of a girl who is suffering, kind of beaten, bruised, scarred, has never had innocence. And this is kind of the big image subject of the poem. But there is likely something beyond that with like the tail, the not back, the stumbling on. And I think that's probably the other half of the poem. It is that regardless of this girl's suffering, she keeps moving. And that definitely makes sense, given the title is Hope. It's a small hope, but she does keep going. So that's almost certainly... that feels like what is being said. I'm still not certain whether this is referencing some particular ancient tale of great, just kind of will and drive to go forward. I would say that the voice is affected in the third stanza, lumpy throat, and she is attacked. The last two lines of the third are a bit vague. We need specificity. I'm a bit nitpicky on the ends of words for the purposes of voice. Bless you. What do you mean affected? I mean, like her voice, so you mean her voice is affected by the lumpy throat? And then you're saying that she is attack is a bit vague for you? I mean, in reference to just moving forward and stumbling on, not like the voice of the poem. Do elaborate, High Caliber. The voice of the poem. But hope is not ephemeral, was born, plucked and scarred. Well, we do have this shift, maybe, from describing her situation to moving into, like, the fight. If you're talking, like, the voices and, like, thematically of what is being said. But that seems like a natural progression. If we were to only describe the girl and her suffering, then the poem wouldn't go anywhere. But I'm not exactly sure what you're saying. She is attack is like grammatically odd, for sure. We don't say she is attack as a sentence. But I think we can understand what this is saying, that if she does not shrink, then she is moving forward, she is fighting, she is continuing. And I'm not sure that it's vague so much that it's just a small bit expressed in 4 syllables and there's not too much we can do. Even if you said, like, she does attack, we would interpret it similarly. But in that case, we're repeating like does. It would have a better impact if we had examples of this ancient tale. Or is the ancient tale referred to somewhere and I'm not paying attention? Well, yeah. The ancient tale is not very specific, but maybe we're both missing it. Because, I mean, this story, it's depicting a small, weak girl who has suffered, who continues to fight on, potentially despite some kind of wealth, maybe in sickness, a lumpy throat, born kind of broken. I'm proud of her and only just met her. Same. I do have to run an ad though. So we'll be right back. please do some like self-care. Maybe think about what this ancient tale might be. From this poem to an ad for Long John Silver's. That is a culture shock, even though I do sometimes eat there. Yeah, it's like in some sense annoying that the ads come in, but also it gives me a chance to stand up, and moving away from a poem is often really good to like reset your head. It's a restaurant, or like a chain restaurant that's pretty bad, I think, in America. Uh, okay. So you say, I'll read your comments after we read the poem again, since we just got back from ad, to get us back into it. Hope. Do you perceive a wayfish frightened hope, a blonde and crying child her tears upon? A dress that still might smell of flowery soap, is she a thing to be dismissed upon? But hope is not ephemeral was born, all pocked and scarred she has never been. An innocent was born all bloodly torn. She goes, despite what she has seen. Ah, never been. I'm gonna underline it so I get it right next time. But not in that color, because it's the same. Bean. She stumbles on a loft-eyed shattered whale, released from lumpy throat, not back, not back. Her knuckles bruised, she knows this ancient tale. Because she does not shrink, she is attack. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. Hope. So StylishFail, you say, okay, just so you're not led into reading too much, it's not referring to anything specific. Oh, come on. You're not supposed to say that, StylishFail. More like she has been here before. Yeah, just like that her experience, like the ancient tale of all of this. That's reasonable. I was gonna say, my thought is that maybe it's just the ancient tale of sort of, unfortunately, like being a poem about sort of girl and womanhood. Girl slash womanhood, and then the constant sort of abuse that is placed upon women in society, going so far back into history, ancient, and these things. I mean, a dress that still might smell of flowery soap. So we think like maybe she is well because she is sort of clean and like pampered and wearing nice things. But of course, while this is maybe one aspect of societal femininity, there is a lot of underlying structure. I mean, even like pawn, being controlled, being used, being dismissed as a woman. I know I'm not supposed to say, but I didn't want to distract or lead you to a goose chase. Well, it's here's the thing, like I see something on the page, I have to assume it's intentional and explore it to its full degree. And I think now I'm talking about something that's kind of interesting, where looking at this girl, like she is subjected to societal norms of femininity, and yet she has this struggle perhaps of being less beautiful, has never had innocence, something we might normally associate with girlhood, and then yet she staggers on, she moves forward because she must survive against that abuse, merely because of her gender, her identity in society. And that is a sort of ancient tale that you see, especially when someone cannot, in many ways, perform femininity. So let's say not having quite the same beauty as someone else. And so she endures lots of pain, is further sort of damaged. I mean, if we talk about all the pains this world can give, this is certainly something that is more... I mean, it just speaks to, like, constant abuse. And So maybe, maybe I like this ancient tale and like being able to interpret it as a thing and put meaning into this as something that speaks more broadly to what it means to be a girl and a woman historically from a societal perspective. And then the goose chase is great because we found something interesting to add to the poem. You see, like, the goose chase is the best part to me. Even if the poem is not intended to mean anything, and it is, in fact, like a goose chase or whatever, there is so much joy in finding and catching, more so, the geese. But it's like, no worries. Honk. Catching geese is fun. The feather up, the wing up. Yeah, let's do it like that. Oh, that's a killer goose. That's a good goose right there. I know, I love the goose chase in poetry too. Yeah. So I'm going to go on with my interpretation because I honestly like it more than this meaning nothing. It gives a broad scope. It gives a scope to the poem that is lost without it. I think that's the cover art for your book of poems at StylishFail, this goose. So actually, Mookie MC, our community, we are making a collection of poems that I am sort of curating, an anthology, and the cover of that anthology very well may be a collection of all of the doodles from the various analyses. And it's going to have like 10 poems from people in the community, plus a couple of mine. And it's going to be a handmade zine that is going to be printed, stapled, folded, and sold. It's an excellent idea. Yeah, and it's supposedly going to happen in March. This is a fun idea to use all the doodles. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to do for it, is use the little drawings. Because there's so many of them. There's like a mountain on this one, and pie charts. This one has less drawings. This one has Bibles. This one has Sonic and a lock. We draw a lot, really. What's that? It's like a fractal. Some of them have like a ton of drawings. So it is kind of the idea. Maybe this one. Oh yeah, this one has all sorts of doodles. A pumpkin. Yeah. Anyway. Oops. I wonder if geese like jam. They eat berries, but never fed a goose jam. Loaf of bread with jam and berries laid out across the park. Maybe you could. I love the doodle on under the apple tree. Yeah, that was like the first. So StylishFail, not to derail the poem, but the doodle on under the apple tree was sort of the genesis of drawing on poems. In this chat, we drew the person under the apple tree. And it was after doing this that I'm like, oh, it's really fun to explain the poem through drawing. And then it was after this that I started to add more drawings and random things in the poem, in the different poems, to help explain drawings. Some of them bad, some of them better. And this is like it's pretty much because of that apple tree drawing that we end up with all of the different drawings and eventually the graphs throughout the poems. Yeah, they're doodles. Mookie MC, while I decipher, they either help me understand things or help chat or are just fun, like the goose. Sometimes there's just like figures that help me explain things. So it's all sorts. So then we have meaning. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. And as a particular poetic move, I like this. It's normally people are pretty afraid to mess with the sonnet form, which is why it is nice to be new to something, because I wouldn't even think to throw my last two syllables right aligned in the poem to like break the form. This is just not something I would have ever thought to do. And this is why we get new people into new forms and new art, because they have new ideas. And this is great because it's structurally but death, right? Everything except for death, which is over here separated from the poem that represents her life. So this is quite literally a structural choice, separation, that reflects the meaning, death being separate from her life, and even affects our sound when we read. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. It encourages you to just take one beat and wait a second to get to there because of that choice. It's like, this is one of my favorite things about the poem, really. How many tabs do I have open? I thought I was bad. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I like to go back and reference them, but I have tabs open going back to the start of the Poets of Twitch. So it's got to be like 80. Yep. And then I was writing something. Yeah, that was me writing. That's a poem I wrote. Hey, look, Schrodinger's cat. That's the original Pinguino Man. Hey, look, that's your poem. And here we are. So, let's look at your questions that you had about this poem. Because I would say meaning, sound, everything kind of reflects and has this nice, consistent meaning. And I don't know. I think it does a good job to describe the plight of this girl and the hope that she carries on, the slight hope that is just to keep living. And the wording is very good because it seems to have a double meaning to me, the last line. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. Where's the double meaning? Am I dumb? She knows all pains this world can give, but death. So it's like, if an idle mind is the devil's workshop, that many open tabs must mean I am well protected. Well, I don't know if my mind dwells on them. Perhaps it's many idle tabs, and those are the devil's tabs. So maybe I'm quite vulnerable to devilish attack. But my mind is certainly not idle during any given I don't know, episode of the Poets of Twitch. I think I'm not quite seeing your double meaning though, High Caliber. And I think you're probably typing it. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. I like that, savors. Okay. Wait, that's a nice little meaning. Da, 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 da. High Caliber is saying there's a double meaning in this last line, and I'm not quite seeing it. a little note, like a little detail, is that we have savors, a haggard breath, something that is pained, difficult. And I think this really shows at the end of the poem that she is indeed, like, enjoying in some case. Or not necessarily enjoying, but like, I mean, that's what savoring is. It's appreciating. She can still kind of find some small contentedness in the pain. And as a structural thing, the sonnet usually looks to describe one thing in detail. At least this sonnet, the Shakespearean sonnet that goes 12-2, or 4-4-4-2. It usually describes one thing in fairly great detail, and then the last two lines serve as a sort of twist or turn. And in terms of meaning, I think we do that quite well. Because, yeah, Mookie MC, thankful for the feeling of being alive. Even though all of this, even though the pain, the dismissal, the fight, she can still savor. And so long as she hasn't had death, then we circle back, she has hope. And I think that really serves the function of the sonnet turn. The only pain the world can give is, or, the only pain the world can give is, or death is the only pain the world can give. And I think, like, she knows all pains except death. I don't know, my brain saw double meaning for a sec. Here's how my brain works. The only pain the world can give is death. Or death is the only pain. Wait. She knows all pains except death. XD, okay, here's how my brain works. I am never sure of anything until I start explaining it, and then I prove myself wrong. I panic. You know, fair enough. So have you convinced yourself out of a double meaning then, High Caliber? She knows all pains this world can give but death. I do think, like, the slight, like, negative of, like, all pains but... Oh, wait. She knows all pains this world can give. Like, she knows every pain, which sort of would include death, right? Like, every pain of the world includes death and the weight of it all. And then... But since there's this break here, and then it's like, wait, but death. She, in fact, has not experienced death. And it's like, maybe a little twist. I don't know if it's a double meaning, so much as just like a really great use of suspense. She knows all pains this world can give, but death. CC double meaning. So there are like two meanings, because we have a meaning until we elaborate with the last two words. It's not maybe a double meaning in the traditional, like, double entendre wordplay sense, but I do think it adds a meaning through the structure, as I see it. Double interpretation. Yeah. And especially if you were just hearing this for the first time. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath. She knows all pains this world can give. But death. Sort of catch your audience with that one. I mean, they expect the rhyme because it's a sonnet. So they know you're going to say something after that. But they don't know what you're going to say. So it is suspense. It is very good. I agree that the last line's like very cool, regardless. So, StylishFail, you had questions maybe? Oh, and then there was the original inspiration of this poem. So, we have I got inspired by a tweet. I've added a screenshot in the second file. Please only read it after the poem. I'd like your unbiased thoughts. This is my first attempt at a sonnet. Like feedback on how well I stuck. So I think you stuck the landing in terms of the form. Do you feel that the language is forced to fit the structure? No. Only in the sense that whenever you're writing a sonnet, the language is forced to fit the structure. And it is that forcing that allows things. Yeah, you can ask something before we go to the tweet. Absolutely. Actually, I find a poem to be more effective when it can be interpreted in different ways successfully. I guess it depends on what the reader brings into it. Absolutely, yes. So, having multiple interpretations is a really nice thing. And having that moment at the end, and even just like we were talking about the ancient tale, I had an interpretation of it, which StylishFail didn't intend, but that's why there's so much joy in the poem. I think we talk about this to some decent degree, Mookie MC, where greater interpretations can be just really enjoyable for some people. I actually have a graph for it. So it's this graph that basically has like interpretations and then how specific we are in the poem. And if we're very unspecific, it's hard to interpret anything from the poem. But then once we get specific enough, people can kind of start to understand, and then it drops back off and gets quite low, because if you get hyper specific, there's maybe only like a few interpretations for your poem. Some people like to read poems that are here because it explains things in a pretty straightforward way, and they don't have to do a lot of like maybe the work when there's a ton of different interpretations to parse and maybe like come to their own interpretation. So, and this isn't necessarily a graph that we can draw in any particular poem, but we can look at people on where they might prefer poetry in terms of how specific and how interpretable it is. Freely interpretable. So the first stanza is supposed to give the idea of hope as an innocent, sweet girl, and the rest of the poem saying that she is not that. She is in fact a badass. Does that come true or through? That's why I started stanza 2 with but. Do you perceive a waifish frightened hope? A blonde and crying child, her tears upon. A dress that still might smell of flowery soap, she a thing to be dismissed upon. Okay, so hope as this small, empty, frightened thing that we just use. But hope is not ephemeral, was born. So hope isn't sort of a fragile thing, as the poem says. You're using the girl to talk about hope rather than the girl having hope. And then that... And then having hope is this like badass thing against adversity because the world is dangerous and painful. And so having hope is an act of great strength. Okay, so that makes sense. It's a personification. Absolutely makes sense. She is a representation of hope. Is it clear? So, yes. I do think, like, I didn't come to it, and admittedly I didn't spend that much time on meaning because we spent a lot of time on sound, and it's a give and take. But saying, but hope is not ephemeral. Okay, yeah. Do you perceive like a fragile little hope, it as a blonde crying child, crying on a pampered dress, whatever, she's clean and like has a dress and whatever, and we just use it as this like little thing that doesn't actually do that much, and then you counter it. Hope is not ephemeral. Hope is not this little thing we can just use at our whim. It is a badass. It's just the drive to go forward against all pain. Yeah. I do think the poem like says it. We can just look at the lines. And I mean, of course, now that it's explained, it's going to be easier for me to see. But like, I do think if I looked a little bit more into these first lines, it's, even before it was explained, it's fairly evident in your writing. I think. I think the one thing that really would tie it back together, or maybe two things that would tie it together, is if at the end you brought us back to the beginning and maybe looked at these two views of hope against each other, we would be reminded as like a final statement the tension between our different kinds of hopes and the way maybe the author or the badass girl seems hope versus the scared and weak hope. Tying it together would be good. The other thing is that our poem is just called Hope. And that's fine. But there's probably a way we could like title this to imply the tension in different kinds of hope. I seem doubtful. Yeah, it was just because I was thinking of ways that it could be maybe improved. I definitely think the text says it, but the issue I think is that it's only really right here. And then it moves on. And then throughout the entire rest of the poem, we're just talking about the girl, our other hope. And so maybe tying back in this original hope in the end or within the title would bring it all together in a knot a little more nicely, I think. Does that help? Does that answer that question? Tie it up in a knot. Yes. Mounting hope? Perhaps, yes. Yeah. Cool. So now shall I look at the tweet? StylishFail. Or were there other questions? Is the poem too cheesy? Feels a little live, laugh, love. I think it was a suggestion as a title. Which it is like a slightly more detailed title than just hope, and for that reason I like it. I wonder though, if it contributes to the idea of the two hopes. It shows the hope increasing, mounting, and in that way the poem kind of is similar. Feels a little live, laugh, love. You're psychotic, StylishFail. Live, laugh, love? This poem? Like, it's about a beaten and bloody girl fighting for every shred of hope she can have. Only like surviving barely against the grip of death, having all of their suffering. I do not find it cheesy at all. I also feel that the second and third stanza are too similar in message. How can I change them to build upon each other? Okay, so maybe this is sort of what I was saying, that there's an imbalance of this hope, which even goes into the fourth stanza, and this stanza, which is the sort of peaceful one. So one thing could be, like, maybe you talk about this first hope a little longer and then switch to the other hope somewhere here. And that could work. It could even be in the middle of this. Which I think there is a form of sonnet that goes 6-6-2. Where you do six lines, 6 lines, 2 lines. I'm trying to, maybe. I don't know if I just like that up. 6-6-2 sonnet. That's not helpful. 6 line. Oh wait. 6 line, 2 line sonnet. Okay, so stats. The second division. Because Italian sonnets, oh, are those 4-4-6? Octaves. Italian sonnet goes octave sestet. I see. Interesting. That's a bunch of sestets. Like, maybe there's an argument that this sonnet shouldn't be a Shakespearean sonnet or an English sonnet with its structure of 4-4-4-2, because we're trying to describe two opposing ideas and then a connection at the end. So we could do some kind of sonnet that has 2 big sections and then wraps it up at the end with a way to connect them. This is so useless. The internet is annoying. Okay, Wikipedia is great. Sicilian goes 8-6. That's the Italian sonnet. Then there's the 4-4-3-3, which could be interesting. You could go like one girl, the other girl, the first one, the second one. AAB, AAB, AB, ABA. Oh no. 2 sestets, 2 quatrains. That's 18. That's 20. I don't know. Occaton. This employs AB, 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 CD, CD, CD. So then, like, you could do one girl, another girl, something to connect them. Anyway, the point is that sonnet does not just have to be like the English sonnet, and maybe it would have better balance if we change it structurally. Because what is our poem talking about? It's talking about a sort of dichotomy between 2 hopes. And the best way to describe that would be almost like an even split between them, looking at the 2 of them. Unless we're trying to imply that the badass girl is maybe the better way, in which case maybe having an imbalance and more of her is okay. But the more we describe her, the less we describe the first girl, which means we might lose some of the meaning of her just by the nature of it not being proportional. Structure affecting meaning. So, I honestly think the best way, like, given that you already feel these are repetitive, I would say to maybe just remove a little bit of badass girl, because we get a ton of her, and add a little bit of the one that doesn't come through as well. Okay, let's see. I like my poetry, like I like my women cold and bitter. That would be fun. One stanza about sweet angel hope, one stanza about badass hope. Then a volta. Yeah, exactly. Same way I like my beer, cold and bitter. Mostly familiar with English sonnets, don't really look at other structures. Yeah, so, and that's okay. Like, this is your first sonnet, so I don't think you're much to blame that, like, this is how you set it up. But it's also good to know that there are many, many ways you can branch out and do more sonnet. In one of my poems, my college professor had me pick 3 items in a room, and I had to do them all together to one idea. So I had to relate the items in person in the room. I got something super cool. Yes, I did read that on stream. It was, yeah, yeah. There was like something sitting on the table, I think. What was it? Was there a flower? The plant. Okay, the plant was one, yeah. Um Plant mirror sick person. Yes, that was a cool poem. It was a long time ago, and it was probably untitled, unless it's flower. Nope, that's one I wrote. Curio. I have no idea. It was around this time, I think. No, I was back. Not that one. This one. I found it. Yeah, so it was about the flower, it was about the mirror, and it was about the sick person. There's a lot of ways to get poetic inspiration. Just taking anything and sort of making a poem around it. I have this maybe like really terrible idea. So, since we're talking about sonnets, a sonnet has 14 lines. And my other hobby, where 14 comes up as a notable number, this is the number of cards in a Magic the Gathering booster pack. And I'm like, well, if you open it, you have like, you could have 1 card per line. And each card, you use a word from that card and put it in the line. And then you'd have a sonnet. And that's not so much to say that it's maybe like a good idea, but being able to connect these things and write poetry based off of everything and any 3 objects in a room or whatever you come across literally randomly in a randomized pack of cardboard, these are like good things to do. So that maybe answers the other question. The second and third stanza too similar. Maybe changing structure, maybe changing how they're set up, whatever. Any other questions before I look at your tweet that inspired this? StylishFail. Within this sonnet? Yeah, questions regarding the sonnet. Do I feel that 2 and 3 are too similar? Well, okay, not necessarily, because they're like both good. I think the issue is that giving 2 and 3 the same message gives that message so much space that it overshadows the other important half of the poem. It's not that they are too similar, or it is that they are too much of that meaning. It, like, and even, like, not necessarily. This is about her pain. This is about her fight. She moves, she pushes forward in this poem, where this one is like, she is in pain, whatever. I guess there she goes, despite what she has seen. But here's the thing, like, you ask that StylishFail probably because you think these are in some capacity similar or too similar, like, given that you're asking that question. And I would say maybe they feel that way because having 2 stanzas devoted to this one idea makes your poem a little bit unbalanced. So it's not necessarily the similarity that becomes the mechanical issue of the poem as I see it. The issue is the proportion of one idea to another. That makes sense? Okay. Any other questions? So, like, the answer is, I guess, sort of yes. It's sort of yes, because there's too much of it, maybe. And sometimes I think this is an important thing. You ask, I think it's a tweet that StylishFail found. So you ask this question: is it too similar? I think asking a question like this implies that you already think it is. And yeah, having someone to either like validate this or deny it can be helpful. However, if you are prompted to ask this question, you can then think, well, why am I asking this question? What about it, what mechanics do I think are like making it too similar? And it's not that I don't want you to ask this question. It's great that you ask the question because it shows you want to improve. Absolutely. So yeah, I did think it was too similar, but I couldn't quite figure out how to improve it. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So then that is like absolutely the right thing to do. And sometimes it's very hard to look at our own poems and just ask why. But I think it's the combination of this meaning being slightly more obscure and the fact that there is a lot of this that maybe gives us our answer. There's just too much of this idea. It was more a weakness I saw in my work, wanted feedback to improve it. Perfect. Yes. Then you're all good. Awesome. Like that shows an awareness of one's work. And those are the questions we should ask. So that's perfect. I want to look at the tweet now. This is what inspired it. Okay. People speak of hope as if it is a delicate ephemeral thing made of whispers and spiders' webs. It is not. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, the grit of the cobblestones in her hair, and just spat out a tooth as she rises for another go. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I think, like, this is already poetic, but, like, this makes sense perfectly as an expansion of this poem. So, and even using some of, like, the same things is kind of fun. Enjambment is when you complete a phrase in the next line instead of the line you started on. Oh, good to know. Oh, I love the enjambment and the repetition and half rhyme. Yes. So the enjambment, I think, in general, like enjambment in a sonnet indicates, like, to me, like, I like that more than just, like we talked about, every line ending. So it's good to know that the term is enjambment. Thank you, High Caliber. Hope requires work and perseverance. Exactly. Yes. Thank you for all the great feedback, chat. Thank you, chat, for giving StylishFail feedback. StylishFail, thank you for submitting. And this one's been enjoyable. I've been wanting to learn how to use poetic devices with more intention in regards to how they are used to show meaning. Well, the good thing is, High Caliber, that is what we talk about all the time. Right? I mean, sometimes it's the little things like separating death to show that death is separate. It was in, a while ago, Inky Capnip's poem, not Secret Garden, it was what was it called? Process. That this poem like subtly changes its rhyme scheme throughout the poem. We talked about this one a lot. This would be like a good VOD to watch in terms of like how rhyme changes. Because it starts going like A, but then it shifts later into like an ABBA, 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 and this simultaneously reflects a change in mindset of the subject. So this would maybe be a great one to watch in terms of particularly how rhyme can be used to reflect changes in what is actually being said. That was a great stream, one of my best. I agree. That was an excellent stream. And that was called Process by Inky Capnip, who's an awesome streamer. Anyway, so here is Hope by StylishFail. To read it one more time. Hope. Do you perceive a wayfish frightened hope? A blonde and crying child her tears upon, a dress that still might smell of flowery soap. Is she a thing to be dismissed? Upon? But hope is not ephemeral, was born, all pocked and scarred she has never been, and innocent was born all bloodly torn. She goes, despite what she has seen. God, it was Bean. But hope is not ephemeral, was born, all pocked and scarred she has never been, and innocent was born all bloodly torn. She goes, despite what she has seen. She stumbles on, a loft-eyed shattered wail, released from lumpy throat, not back, not back. Her knuckles bruised, she knows this ancient tale, because she does not shrink, she is attack. She spits a tooth and savors haggard breath, she knows all pains this world can give, but death. Hope by StylishFail. Bim, 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 bim. This poem goes. Thank you so much for submitting. Excellent work, excellent writing. And always, like, thank you so much for having the courage to send work. Even, like, I feel like when we've already sent stuff, sending again can just always be hard every time. You're grinning? That's good. I'm grinning. I'm usually grinning at the end. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to read all the poems on stream. It is truly amazing and a joy, and something that I, up to this point, have not gotten enough of. And that is a pretty good sign, given that the Poets of Twitch is going on like more than 60 things. Would switching bean and scene help the pronunciation stronger and still hold the meaning? Oh, that's a really good idea. Okay. But hope is not ephemeral, was born. All pocked and scarred she has... No. Well, she has never seen her innocence, maybe? At which point you can say, despite what she has been. Basically, because what Mookie MC is saying is that when you see Ben, you're normally more likely to say it like that, because you might not be anticipating the rhyme of seen. So if seen could be here, all pocked and scarred she has never seen, her innocence was born all bloodly torn. It gets a little clunky, but I think there's a way to do it where then you can throw bean at the end, because despite what she has been is very smart as well. Just putting seen here, though, she has never seen an innocent, doesn't quite work, but if you say seen her innocence, then it does work probably well enough to work. That's brilliant. I agree. That's super smart, Mookie MC. Great feedback. That makes like a lot of sense. High Caliber thinks it's cool. Yeah, I
Thank you
dig.
for watching. I encourage you to check out the rest of the series, follow if you enjoyed, and stop by Twitch if you want to share your own work. See you there.